So, I've recently been reading the Three Body Trilogy by Leo Tse, and one concept within the series has really stood out to me, that of the dark force rule of the Fermi Paradox. It is an incredibly pessimistic theory of first contact, and that is more than conveyed by the book series. But does it hold up? And could our universe actually be a dark forest? That's what I'm exploring today, and I hope you enjoy. To start, what even is the dark forest rule? Well, the basic premise is that life is far from rare. In fact, it's very abundant. Yet any civilizations stay quiet and hidden because communication is dangerous. In the dark forest, the universe is crowded and hell is other people. But how did cosmic society get to this point? Well, as luck would have it, we were given the basic assumption of dark forest theory from the Three Body book series. So for the basis of my analysis, I'll be looking at the theory as it's presented in the books. Two main assumptions put forth are 1. Survival is the primary need of civilization, and 2. Civilizations constantly expand, yet the resources of the universe remain constant. This in of itself doesn't create the dark forest though, so we have to consider two other concepts, the suspicion chain and technological explosion. The suspicion chain is the mutual distrust between civilizations created as a result of the extremely long time it would take for communication to travel between interstellar civilizations. You can't know if a civilization is hostile or peaceful, and even if you know, you can't know they know you know, and on and on. Secondly, technological explosion states that civilization can, at any point, undergo rapid technological advancement. For example, modern humans spent nearly 200,000 years living in small hunter-gatherer societies. The discovery of agriculture was only 12,000 years ago, the Industrial Revolution only 200 years ago, and the rise of atomic energy in the Information Age less than 100 years ago. All of these were unpredictable qualitative advancements, and once thought unthinkable to our own society, so it's unreasonable to expect any outside observers to have predicted either. And if we assume the trend of human society to be generally consistent for any civilization, then the threat of technological explosion is very real. Taking all this in mind, the universe then becomes the dark forest. Civilizations need constant resources in order to sustain themselves, are unable to know the intentions of another civilization they are in competition with, and know that if their position is revealed even to an inferior civilization, it could rapidly advance and pose a threat. As such, the only smart thing to do is hide, and if you're exposed, wipe them out before they can wipe you out. But what if we're working off flawed assumptions? Firstly, dark force theory discounts just how large the universe is. In the words of Douglas Adams, space is big, really big. You just won't believe how vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly big it is. I mean, our galaxy alone is over 100,000 light years across, and on that scale, even the speed of light is slow. And when one considers how the laws of physics effectively prevent faster than light travel, as well as making traveling close to the speed of light incredibly difficult, most civilizations would use slower fusion or antimatter rockets, which would only be able to accelerate crafts to a mere fraction of the speed of light, widening the cosmic void even more. The scale of cosmic distances might make communication difficult, but it also serves as a protective barrier. However, this in of itself doesn't discount dark force theory. Given enough time, the universe could become crowded as a result of continued civilizational development and growth, but that is also part of the issue with the theory. Dark force theory assumes civilizations will infinitely grow and expand, and that it is imperative for them to do so. As part of what would lead a civilization to arrive at the dark force conclusion would be competition over the finite resources of the universe. This assumption of the universe as a zero-sum game is highly flawed. Infinite growth is the logic of a cancer cell. No civilization will be able to last sustainably and long-term through constant expansion. Resource consumption would inevitably outstrip availability, and the civilization would very quickly burn itself out. In fact, because there is a finite amount of matter in the universe, each civilization would know that the best way to survive long-term would be high-efficiency matter and energy recycling rather than continued growth. That only short-lasting, expansive civilizations would overconsume their resources. So what reason would they have to be in competition with others for resources, or assume other civilizations are trying to compete with them? Lastly, even if we take dark forest theory to be true, is it even possible to hide? Advanced civilizations like our own would almost certainly produce signs of its existence. Things like light pollution or radio broadcasts, or any life would produce some evidence of its existence as the byproduct of biological processes. While civilization could theoretically conceal evidence of its existence by, for example, limiting said radio signals or light pollution, trying to conceal planetary biosignatures would be a much more difficult task, as any biological processes occurring on the surface or in the atmosphere will produce evidence of its existence. That is not to say hiding is necessarily impossible, though, as, for example, an advanced enough society could live on ships in interstellar space, making it a lot easier for them to stay hidden. But also, the logic of the dark forest works against itself, as wiping out another civilization is an act that in of itself could expose a civilization's own presence. Civilization-ending attacks and battles, by their nature, cannot be quiet, and this causes problems for dark forest theory. If attacking can signal locations, then it gives incentives for civilizations to not attack each other, even if their locations are mutually exposed. For example, let's look at two civilizations, A and B. Both civilizations know the location of each other, but not to the rest of the dark forest, and A decides to attack and wipe out B, and does the same for C when C reveals itself, even though A's location wasn't exposed to C. Other civilizations in the dark forest are likely to see this and see A as a threat, and so either trying to hide harder or wipe out A before it has a chance to discover them. Yet this also has a threat to reveal their own position, and on the cycle continues. Ultimately, the primary focus of survival in the dark forest would be concealment. So long as your position is not exposed, then you are safe. This could also open up the possibility of civilizations engaging in peaceful communication, so long as neither of their homeworlds are exposed, which could break the suspicion chain. To wrap everything up, the dark forest is a really cool concept to think about and explore, and it makes for a truly terrifying literary setting. However, at least in its commonly conceived form, it is built on several key assumptions that make it impossible to treat the theory as a given. It doesn't mean it's unworkable, however. I think revising it to highlight the dangers of any evidence to your presence, including attacks, and emphasizing the need to stay hidden above all else is a good starting point to improve the theory. But I've certainly missed some things, and there's some things I sadly had to cut out for brevity's sake. So comment down below if you have any questions. That's all for this transmission. Be sure to subscribe to keep up, and I'll see you all later.